Very good. Okay, welcome back to Birchat Hamazon. And we were speaking last week about the third bracha. Were we not?
Yep.
Yeah. Third bracha. And I think that we said that we were going to start with Ritzei and Ya'aleh V'yavo.
We did.
Because that is in the middle of the third bracha.
Nothing.
So the first thing I want to ask is
Why?
why? Why is it where it is? Before we even know what it is, why is it where it is? Well, I know it's a fair question, is it? You've got to know what it is. You got to, yeah, it's got to be somewhere. And you've got to know what it is, I suppose, before you can answer where it is. Okay, so we'll do what it is first. So we'll start with Ritzei. What is Ritzei? What is it? What's that bit there for? Anyone?
It's a Shabbat something.
Okay, something to do with Shabbat. Okay, yes. It's something to do with Shabbat. We know that because we say it on Shabbat. Okay, so it's there to do what? To acknowledge that today is Shabbat. Okay. So if it's about Shabbat, if it's to acknowledge Shabbat, what might we find in it?
Words about resting.
Reference to things about Shabbat, right? Which are, Leslie just said it, resting of some description.
I saw it.
Right. So, because that's what we do on Shabbat. What does the word Shabbat mean? Yes, it's from the word lashevet, to sit. It's also the same root of the word. Anybody got grandchildren in kindergartens? Yeah. Shvita. A very, very useful word to know in Israel, Shvita. It's one of the first words I learned.
Even I know that word.
Yeah, even Goldie knows what Shvita is. It's a strike. Shvita is a strike. Why did I say that about the kindergartens? Because they've just been on strike, and all of those who've got are they still on strike? Yeah, who've got grandchildren in kindergarten, you've probably been on babysitting duties while your children work, and the kids are off because the teachers are on strike. So shvita, to strike, because you rest. When you strike, you're not working. Shabbat is somewhere you don't work. So resting. Okay, you'd expect to find something about resting. What's another word for resting?
Menucha.
No.
Lanuach. Yeah. Shabbat. Menucha. Okay. So resting of some description. Right. So let's have a look and see what's in. Have you got your translations at the ready?
Yep.
Okay. Ritzei. What's the root of that word?
Wish.
Again?
Ratsa.
Ratsa. Yeah. Ani rotzeh. Or ani. What would you say?
Rotha.
Very good, Goldie. Getting there. We're getting there. Ani rotzeh, or in Goldie's case, ani rotza, means I want. So ritzei is a request. It's a request. The ritzei is the imperative form. It's the imperative form.
Can't it be from the root of leratzot, which is to appease?
Okay, it's the same thing. It's the same root. It's the same
Yeah,
word.
it's-
To
but it's
appease
to appease.
is to want. If I appease you, what do I
But
want?
it's different if I want something or if I'm appeasing somebody.
It's true, but the root of the word is the same.
Yeah,
So you're right. Leratzot.
Isn't appeasing giving it or peace or something?
Appeasing means to
Calm someone.
means to how would you define appease? If you
to
appease,
satisfy somebody.
yeah, if you appease somebody, we usually use it if somebody's angry and we appease them. It means we
Calm them down.
calm them down. We pacify. That's a good word. Google said pacify. Yeah. But when you pacify somebody, you give them what they want. That's why it's the same. What's the same root of the word? So ritzei, you could argue that it's an imperative. Be appeased, be pacified, be pleased. Okay. What's the word ratson? Yehi ratson. May it be
Your will.
your will. So what does that mean? Your will.
Your desires.
That you want something. Ratson is the same word as rotzeh. Lionel, you've got a confused look on your face.
A PL on top.
Sorry?
Is there a PL?
It is, but in here, in its form here, Ritzay, it's an imperative form.
Yeah, because the taste.
Does it change the meaning? Yeah, it does change the meaning, but it's still from the same root. The root,
Yeah.
the root of the word is to want, to please, to appease, will. So Ritzay, be appeased or want or let it be your will in a way. Yehiratzon and Ritzay are a little bit almost interchangeable. How have you got it translated as the word Ritzay?
Favour.
Favor us, okay. Or Yehiratzon would be, may it be your will. It's the same idea, isn't it?
Find favour.
May it please you in Austral.
May it-
May it please you.
May it please you. Okay, so you can see the idea. It's an imperative verb. And of course, in Hebrew, the imperative is often translated in English as may it be, right? So, when we say Ritzay, we're not sort of commanding God, you must be pleased with us. We're asking him. It's a request, but that's how it's worded. So Ritzay, be pleased. May we find favor. V'hachalitzenu.
And
Go.
save us,
And
and save us.
that would be ha.
It's,
Salah. This is hachalitzenu.
here it says strengthen.
Okay, what is a chalutz?
Pioneer.
And why is a pioneer a pioneer? Because he's strong. He goes, right? Chilutz atzamot. What's that?
An individual.
What is chilutz atzamot? And where do you hear it? Where do you say it?
Benching Rosh Chodesh.
Benching Rosh Chodesh, yes. When we bench Rosh Chodesh, what do we ask for? We ask for all sorts of things.
Strength.
We'll get to that eventually when we go to through Shabbat davening. But let's have a look at it. Let's skip to it right now and have a look at what Rosh Chodesh benching says, because that word is in there, as Frank quite rightly says. Let's have a look at our Reta. We're nearly there. Here we go.
For physical health.
Where's it here? So,
Life.
It says here, in life of physical health.
there we go. I found it. Yehi Ratzon milafnech Hashem Elokeinu b'klei avotenu. Here you see, we start this prayer with Yehi Ratzon. We might have said Ritzay in a way, because the same word, same idea. Let it be your will, milfanecha, in front of you, Hashem Elokeinu b'klei avotenu. Shetechadesh aleinu et hachodesh hazeh. You should renew this month for us, l'tovah, for good, v'libracha, for blessing. V'titen lanu. And there's another example of an imperative. Titen is an imperative, right? When the imperative is either ten, give me, tenly, or more correctly, titenly, you shall give me, or you should give me, or give me. So it's the same idea. V'titen lanu, and you should give us chaim aruchim. Not necessarily. Chaim Aruchim. It doesn't say Chaim Arukim.
You sound like Ruby now.
Yeah.
It does.
In mine it says
Arukim.
Arukim.
It's interchangeable. Some say
Not in mine, it doesn't. It says Aruchim. What's the difference between Arukim and Aruchim?
Ordered.
just a little dot.
A little dot is the difference. You're right. Okay. So, if you say to somebody Chaim Arukim,
It's wrong. Isn't
what are you wishing them?
Long life.
it? No, you're not.
You're like wishing them a long life. If you say Chaim Aruchim, what are you wishing them?
An ordered life.
What is the root of the word Arukim? Well, it's the same root of both of them, but what is the word for long in Hebrew? Aruch. Okay, so Chaim Aruchim. Or Arukim, because it's, Ruby would tell us why, I don't quite know, by the way, it gets a dot. Anyway, there's another word which has got the same letters, which means
Arechat Yamim.
Aruchim is
Arechat Yamim.
if you were to
Are you
okay,
ignoring my comment of ordered?
ordered, why ordered?
Because you laroch shulchan.
That's with an ayin.
Arechat Yamim, isn't that the same word, John?
Arichat Yomim is the same, yes, that's right. That means the lengthening of your days. if you change the aleph to the to an ayin, okay, aleph and ayin are often interchangeable, and you had chaim aruchim with an ayin, what would it mean? A life of what's erech? Value. A life of value. So many people, when they say chaim aruchim, not with an aleph, but with an ayin, which means a life of value. Arukim with an aleph is long life, or aruchim as well with an aleph is long from the verb erech, from the word orech, long with an aleph. But if you change interchangeable letters, quite often in Hebrew letters are interchangeable, you would get chaim aruchim. If Ruby was here, he'd be able to do it much better than me. With the ayins, that would be a life of value.
So if you're wishing someone a long life, you say aruchim or arukim?
I think. You'd
Because
have to ask.
some rabbi told me, Rabbi Bloom said you say aruchim.
Aruchim.
Not
You'd have to ask Ruby the definitive answer.
But here it says well,
I always was taught that the correct way of saying it was arukim, chaim arukim. But I think we'll have to ask Ruby what the correct way is, because it's a grammatical thing and I don't know. Anyway, that wasn't the bit that I was interested in. Chaim shel shalom, a life of peace. Chaim shel tova, a life of goodness. Chaim shel bracha, Chaim shel parnasa, we know what that is. Next one. Chaim shel chilutz atzamot. Where are your atzamot? Your bones. Your bones. So what are you asking for when you ask for a life of chilutz atzamot?
Strengthen your bones.
Strong bones. You're praying to. You shouldn't have osteoporosis.
Wow.
Right? Chaim shel chilutz atzamot. Strong bones. Strength of bones means health, obviously. Chaim shahem beish sheyesh bahem yirat shamayim v'yirat chet. Okay. So chilutz atzamot is a way of saying health. Okay, because it's strength. Chilutz means strength, and that's why the chalutzim, the pioneers, because they were strong people. They came and they were pioneers, and it was difficult for them to do it, and they remained strong. So if we go back to Ritzei, we've got Ritzei, be pleased with us, favor us, v'hachalitzenu, and make us strong. Okay, make us strong. Hashem Elokeinu, b'mitzvotecha, make us strong, b'mitzvotecha, with or through, in b'mitzvotecha, with your mitzvot, make us strong with your mitzvot. Does that mean make us strong to do your mitzvot, or does it mean make us strong?
Because we do your mitzvot.
Yeah, because we're doing the mitzvot. How would you understand that?
I think it's the latter.
The latter. Make us strong b'mitzvotecha, through doing your mitzvot.
Excuse me, Johnny, Art Scroll here says, give us rest through your commandments.
Hachalitzenu, he says, give us rest.
Yes.
That's a strange expression for rest, but
Yeah.
what does Jonathan Sachs say? For hachalitzenu. Strengthen us. Yeah, that's more like it. I don't like that Art Scroll.
No. Okay.
Why would you say rest?
No, it's an Art Scroll translation. It's not a literal translation. Rabbi Sachs's translation is better. Strengthen us through your mitzvot. I would say strengthen us through doing your mitzvot. That's how I understood it. Is that what you've got there?
It says through your commandments.
Through your commandments. That means through doing. Yeah. And specifically, uva mitzvat yom hashvi'i, the mitzvah. One mitzvah, the mitzvah is singular rather than mitzvot. The one singular mitzvah of the seventh day, which is HaShabbat HaGadol VaHaKadosh Hazeh, this great holy Shabbat. So we're asking HaKadosh Baruch Hu to strengthen us through doing the mitzvot of Shabbat. So what are we actually doing? It's a request. It's a request, as opposed to a praise. Remember, when we think about the Shemona Esrei, we start with 3 bracha of praise. Then we have that middle section of
Elsewhere.
requests, and then we have the end section
Thank you.
of thanks. So we go praise, request, thanks. This is in the category of request. We're requesting something. We're not praising God here. We're requesting a God. It's a petitional in nature. It's petitional. Okay.
Isn't petitional conflicting with what we would do then on the Shabbat?
We don't normally ask for things on Shabbat. That's a fair question. Let's go through and see where we come to. Because the next bit might answer the question. Key. Yeah, key can also mean something else, can't it? It can mean because, it can mean
And
when, it can mean
And?
as,
For.
I think it means because. Ki yom zeh gadol v'kadosh hu lefanecha. Because yom zeh, this day, is gadol. It's great, and kadosh, and holy before you. And what do we do on it? Lishbot bo v'lanuach bo. To rest and to rest. To rest and to be menucha. Right?
Be content.
Different type of rest, isn't it? Menucha is relaxed.
And be at repose.
At repose, okay. Relax, I would use. Repose will do very nicely.
Jonathan Sachs.
The
Jonathan Sachs says
cease work.
Yeah.
Okay, lishbot bo
Yeah.
would be to cease work. Yeah,
That's
good.
Jonathan Sachs.
Good.
Be content, Art Scroll says.
Oy vey, Smear. Lishbot bo to cease work on it. Yes, that's good translation. V'lanuach bo, and to be rested or relaxed or comfortable on it. Right? Shabbat, menucha, same word. Right? Now, how do we want to be relaxed and to stop working? Do we want to stop work because it's a pain in the neck and we really would like to be up at our computers still working, or driving our taxi or whatever it is we do on Shabbos, and really it's a pain in the neck that we can't? No. How do we want to do it?
Yeah.
Next word. We want to do it with love. We want to do it because we want to do it, not because we have to do it. Right? So this is all fits in. Ritzei. Be pleased with us, strengthen us so that we can do this with love and keep Shabbat with love. I remember as a kid that Shabbat was quite often all the things you can't do. Can't do this, can't do that, can't go to the football, can't watch the telly, can't go to town, can't do all these things.
Why can't you go to the football?
How are you going to get there? No Eruv for a start in Manchester in those days. Where are you going to pay for your ticket? How are you going to pay for the bus? How are you going to go on the bus?
Yeah.
Get the burger.
So yeah, I mean there are ways around it, I guess,
Pay for the burger.
but
Not these days.
but
Certainly
certainly not in the spirit. So it was all a bunch of things you can't do, and of course there's two things about Shabbat, isn't there? The shamor, v'zachor. Shamor, v'zachor. Shamor is the negatives, keep it. Right? And Zachor is remember it. Remember it how? By doing nice things. Well, we never really did many of the nice things when I was a kid. It was just all the things you couldn't do. So it wasn't much fun, to be honest.
Very poor.
Yeah, what can I say? I had a poor education. My poor parents didn't know any better. We didn't do any Zmirot because my dad didn't know how to sing very well. And all the nice things that we've tried to bring. In those days, I don't know what it was like in London.
It wasn't just for Shabbat. That was going back, what I said years ago, that the Cheder system was that it was all geared to the negatives.
Yeah.
And it was only after when we said...
I don't know about what it was like in London when you lot were children, but when I was a kid, we never had Shabbat guests. Occasionally on Yom Tov, we might have had, some close friends might have come or a relative might have come. Seder night we did, but Shabbat, we never had Shabbat guests. That was something completely new when I got married. This was a totally different thing. No, that's the Shabbat Menucha, that's the Ahava, that's the pleasant things. We never had any of that. I don't know what it was like. Was that the done thing in London way back in in the 60s? No, same again. So it was all a bit negative.
I was
Did you? You always had guests. Shabbat?
Yeah.
My parents were at work.
Your parents were at work. Okay. So what we're asking for is we're asking for the Shabbat that we have, yeah, the Ahava. We're asking for our Shabbat here to be a Shabbat of rest, of Ahava, something pleasant. Ritzei. It's a pleasantness. We're asking for our Shabbat not to be, perhaps the Shabbat of some of our youths, when it wasn't all that much fun. Kemitzvat ritzonecha, like the commandment of your will. We want to do it properly, but we want to do it ba'ava. Uviritzoncha, again, with your will. Can you see ritzon in the middle of that word?
Johnny, excuse me, I think our parents worked very, very hard during the week in those days, and they wanted a day of rest. And they had
Fair
a
enough. Yeah, it's a fair answer.
They did.
Fair answer. But I think it's more than that, Johnny. It just wasn't a dumb thing.
It wasn't a dumb thing, I know, yeah.
It wasn't. That wasn't the routine.
Yeah. I agree.
The best I could say is that, we went to group on a Shabbat afternoon. I never used to go because I was too shy and I never go. So I used to sit on my own. I used to sit on my own, Jack Jones at home. So it wasn't much fun at all. Couldn't watch the telly, couldn't put the, so it wasn't much fun. No, okay. But that was my fault because I wouldn't go because I was too shy. And through your will, make it your will that we should nach again. Haniach. Let us rest. Let us rest in a pleasant way. This is comfortable. Noach means comfortable. So let us be comfortable. Shalom, and then it spells it out. Shalom tehei, that there should not be tzara, troubles. There shouldn't be trouble. Should be no trouble. What's the next word? Vayagon. Anguish. That's a good translation. When did you last use anguish in everyday conversation? You should not have trouble and anguish. Va'anacha. Another type of anguish. Well, we got translations. Come on, Rabbi Sachs, help us out. 3 types of anguish. Lament.
Sorrow or sighing.
Sorrow or sighing. Okay, so you get the idea. Tzara v'yagon v'anacha is trouble, sorrow, sighing. You shouldn't say. So what's this saying? Shalom tehei. You shouldn't have a sigh. What do we say with the sigh? Oy, it's a schwer zu sein a Yid. It's so hard to be a Jew. Oy, krechs, right? There should be no krechsing about Shabbos. It should be ahava, right? Whoever wrote this obviously knew that there was 2 ways that you can celebrate Shabbat or commemorate Shabbat. You can either do it because you've got to do it, and with a krechs, with a anacha, with a yagon, with a tzara, or you can do it ba'ahava, and you can do it with hanacha, menucha, and it's a completely different ballgame. And I think about the Shabbatot that I had versus the Shabbatot that my kids had versus even more so the Shabbatot of my grandchildren here in Israel. Chalk and cheese, absolutely chalk and cheese. I had not really thought about it till I delved into this and thought, this is what this prayer is saying to us. We've got to keep Shabbat because that's the halacha, but let's do it ba'ahava. Let's do it in a way which gives us menucha. It gives us a pleasant feeling. It gives us a feeling of love. We look forward to Shabbat, right? It's we used to look forward to Shabbat because there's no school, and if you're at work, you get a day off at least. You don't have to go working. But it's all a bit sort of all a bit negative. Why has this all gone off? There we go. Right, so Vayagon, on the day of our menucha. Let there not be any kvetching and krechsing on the day of our menucha. Yes, Barbara.
Do we know who wrote it?
Do we know that?
Who wrote this?
We're coming to that in a minute. Okay, we're coming to that why they put it there. I suppose we have to know who wrote it before we wrote it there, but we have to know what it is before we knew where we put it. So we're coming to that. V'hareinu Adonai Eloheinu. What does that mean? Show us. Yeah. Laharot means to show. Show us, Hashem Elokeinu. Show us what? B'nechamat Tzion Irecha. What's nechama? Comfort or consolation. How's Rabbi Sachs translate it?
Consolation.
Consolation. So show us the consolation of what? Tzion Irecha. Zion, your city, over Vinyan, and in the Binyan, what's a Binyan? Building of what? Yerushalayim ir Kodshecha, Jerusalem, your holy city. I think you've probably got the answer as to why it is where it is, haven't you? Where is it? It's right in the bracha of Ubanei Yerushalayim. It fits. That's where it belongs, right? Let's just finish it off. Ki, because Ata, you are Baal HaYeshuot, the master of Yeshuot. What's Yeshua? Salvation.
Salvation.
Ubal HaNechamot, and the master of comforting, right? Of consolation. So we start Ritzay, all sort of holy, by asking Hashem to be satisfied with the way we keep Shabbat, right? By saying, give us strength to keep Shabbat as we should. Let this day be a day of menucha and ahava, and a day of love and of rest. And then we all get a bit negative. Let there not be any kvetching and krechsing. And show us some consolation of Tzion Irecha. One sec, Jeff. So if we were asking for consolation, what does that mean? We're recognizing that it's not in a great shape,
Yeah.
right? And we're asking for the building of Jerusalem. What does that tell us? It's destroyed,
We asking
right?
for Mashiach.
And we're asked, well, in not so many words, but ultimately, I guess, if you think that Tzion Irech, if you think that Binyan Yerushalayim can only come through Mashiach, then yes. Because you are Baal HaYeshuot, you are the one that's going to sort this out for us with the salvation. So it goes from being positive to all being a bit negative. Yes, Joe?
That, I don't know if this is where you were getting to, but the distress, grief and lament isn't just ordinary lament, grief and distress. It's the fact that we're distressed about not having
Yeah.
holy city.
And
It's not, so you've got, so if you didn't continue a long run, it could just be all, oh, just don't get upset on Shabbos. But this is
yeah, but then it comes as a don't get over upset. Let us not have any Tzara v'Yogam Anocha.
due to this.
And we are unfortunately got Tzara Yogam Anocha. Why? Because we haven't got Yerushalayim and we haven't got Zion. So hey, I tell you what, Hashem. Hareinu Hashem Elokeinu b'nechem ad Zion. Why don't you sort it out for us and console us about Jerusalem and console us about Zion? And then, of course, how do we carry on after that?
Uvnei Yerushalayim.
Uvenei Yerushalayim, Ira Kodesh, Bimheira B'Yameinu. So it's seamless. It's the obvious place to put Ritzay. You're going to mention Shabbos somewhere, right? Why? Because it's Shabbos and you've got to mention it. Now, who made it? Who wrote it? We don't know. But when was it written? We do know. So we probably know when it was written. It was written.
What does it mean about building Jerusalem, Johnny? And we were built Jerusalem, now it's overbuilt. What does it mean? Is that a temple?
Referring to the temple. Referring to
Yeah,
the
temple, yeah.
When we say Binyan Yerushalayim, there's only one Binyan Yerushalayim that
Yeah.
matters, and
Yeah.
it is Binyanei Ha'umah, right? Or the Holy Land project. It's the Beit
It's a
HaMikdash.
third temple.
Third temple, yeah, that's
Right.
what we're for. So it was written in the early Geonic period. Okay, when was the Geonic period? Okay, let's go through the periods because this is important to know. It's useful to know. People talk about the Geonim, they talk about the Amoraim, the Tanaim, the Rishonim, the Achronim, and you all nod your heads and you say, oh yeah. You haven't a clue, right? So let's get it on the table now. We start with the time of the Anshe Knesset Hagdolah, right? And then we go to the Mishnaic time. What are they called? The people in the Mishnah.
Tanaim.
Tanaim. They're called the Tanaim. Okay.
What does that mean?
Time.
Sorry, so what does that mean?
Tana means to learn. Those that taught us. Okay. Tana means. By the way, there's another example of a switch of letters. What's that taf switch with? Tana.
Gimel, is it?
Shin. What's
Shin.
Shana? Don't mean a year. What's it mean?
Shane.
To repeat from the word sheni. Or Mishnah. What's the Mishnah? Something you repeat over and over and over again. Anybody go to Pirchim, see them when they were little? Yeah, I did. I had to learn all these Mishnahs. There was always one little schnipsker there. Ruby was one of them. I bet he was one of them.
He was very well.
Yeah, I bet
like me.
Ruby would have won one of these. The little schnipser with long payers, right? At the age of 6, could recite 6,000
Oh,
Mishnayos off by
that's
heart.
right, yeah.
That would have been Ruby, right?
That's right.
Maybe without the payers, I don't know.
Yeah.
But there was always somebody, and I would have learned 100 Mishnayos, and I thought, oh, I've done a really good job. There'd be this kid like 10 years younger or something than me, and he would come with like billions of them. And it was really unfair. Anyway, so that's what you did with the Mishnah. You repeated it over and over and over again. That's what the word Mishnah means. It means to repeat. Mishnah Torah of the Rambam. It's a repetition of the Torah. It takes all the halacha of the Torah and he's placing it in the right place for us. So Tana is the equivalent of Shana, to learn, or to teach, to learn. So the Mishnah was written by Tanaim. The Mishnah was put together by whom? Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, when 200 approximately, to be 200, 230, and all the people that we see in the Mishnah, all of those people are called Tanaim. And then the next period that goes up to about 300, something like that, and then you start to get the next period, 300 to about 550, 600. What are they called? Amoraim, okay, and Amoraim or Amoraim, as in the old way of saying it, Amoraim, and they are the rabbis of the Gemara. Okay, the Gemara was what? Was a commentary on the Mishnah. What was the Mishnah? First of all, the Mishnah was all the oral laws that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi said to his fellow rabbis. Because this was after the Churban. The Churban was in 70, so this all went on within the 100 or so years of the Churban, of the destruction of the temple. So what were they worried about? All these oral laws that have been passed down from Moshe Rabbeinu all the way down to the end of the Second Temple period. We're talking a period of what, 1,500 years? What was the problem? They were worried it would get forgotten because there was been an exile. Right? There'd been an exile and everybody was scattered all over the place. So how are they going to remember it? Who's going to be there to tell them what to do? So the Torah Shebaal Peh, which means the oral law, the law that you're meant to know off by heart, got written down. Was it ever meant to be written down? No. It's a big problem. I can imagine Rabbi Yehuda Nasi sitting there pulling his hair out, saying, what am I going to do? You're not meant to write down. There's a halacha. You don't write down the Torah Shebaal Peh. But if I don't, it's all going to get lost. So what do I do? Do I write it down? Do I not write it down? I mean, it's a real dilemma. He decided in the end to write it down. And
get lost in translation.
Well, the problem would get lost altogether if it just didn't get written down. So he probably thought, you know what? This is the lesser of two evils. Better that it's written down. Why shouldn't it be written down? What was the problem with writing it down?
You'll add to it or take something.
No, the opposite.
It was
Once it's written down, it's very difficult to change it. And the whole point of the oral law, it was oral because it was meant to be dynamic. It was meant to change as times changed. And if you look at what went on in the Mishnah,
How does that happen? Changes as
yeah, because things change. So the halacha adapts to changes. The problem was, and that always happened. If you look, for example, a very simple example, all the gezerot of the Rabbanan, all the decrees. Let's take the most famous of all. Shane Phillips not here; it's his favorite one. The gezerah of Rabbeinu Gershon, right? Which was
Not more
You
than
can-
not more than one wife for Ashkenazim, right?
Bit of luck.
That changed. What?
That's a bit of luck. I
A
think.
bit of luck, yeah. You know, good job you're not Sephardi, right? Because they didn't hold it. So this halacha, where does it say that in the Torah? Doesn't, right? So you don't tell me that the halacha didn't change, Jonathan. Of course, the halacha changed. The halacha changed as time went on. Certain things happened, and the halacha, the interpretation of the halacha changed. The rabbis came along and made various fences around the halacha, some which were then made even more fence-like, some that were no longer required. But the problem was that once you wrote it down, it becomes as if it were written in stone. That's an expression we have in English, isn't it? It's not written in stone, meaning if it's written in stone, you can't change it. What was written in stone?
The
Ten
Ten
Commandments.
Tablet.
Can't change them. So,
Well,
yes, Johnny.
I was going to say, was the Torah actually written down at the beginning?
Apparently so.
Yeah, okay.
Apparently so.
We
Yes.
say they were written by Moshe.
Written by Moshe,
Yeah, okay.
by Hashem. So you have the Torah Shebichtav, the Torah which was written down by Moshe, and the Torah Shebaal Peh, which was this oral law which explained the written law. Now, I always say, you've heard me say this loads of times, why was the oral law oral? It wasn't because God ran out of ink, right? And they couldn't write it all down. Right? He had plenty ink and he had plenty stone. He could have written the whole lot down, but he didn't. And the reason was that it was meant to be dynamic. The problem was, and this is why the oral law was not meant to be written down, that once it's written down, it's very, very difficult then to change. And what happened? It's exactly what happened. Because it got written down in the Mishnah, and then 400 years later, the Gemara is written by the Amoraim. And what is the Gemara? Trying to understand what Rabbi Yehuda Nasi meant when he said X, Y, and Z in the Mishnah. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, when he wrote it down, knew exactly what he meant. And he never thought for 1 minute that somebody else, 400 years later, is not going to understand what he was written down, because he wrote it down as clear as he possibly could. But because it was written down, it's difficult. You can't write every single thing down. What does the Gemara come along? Gemara comes along and gives you all these barney cases, right? All these crazy cases. What if it's this, and what if it's that, and what if it's the other? Well, the Mishnah couldn't write all those things down. So that was the Gemara, and that was the time of the Amoraim, and that was written down around between 500 and 600. And of course, now everything refers back to what? The Gemara.
Where does Halacha Moshe Sinai come in?
Okay, so good question. Halacha Moshe Sinai is an answer given when there is no clear understanding of how it developed. Because what we see in the development of halacha is the following. We'll carry on our little route and we'll see. So you've got the Gemara, which then went to the Mishnah and explained the Mishnah and commentary on the Mishnah. And of course, what do you see in the Gemara? More than anything else. Arguments, machloket. Now, if it was obvious, then there would be arguments, would it? So it wasn't obvious. And the reason it wasn't obvious is because you can never write down something which was the oral law, because the oral law was explained, every case was explained orally as it went along, as it arrived, as the case arose. So you end up with all this machloket, Rabbi this says that and Rabbi that says that. Well, who's right and who's wrong, right? We come to a psak. Doesn't mean the other one was wrong, right? Chas v'sholom, you can't say that an Amorah was wrong. We don't paskin like him, fine. Doesn't mean he was wrong. So what does that tell you about the halakha? Different interpretation. So that's what the Gemara is, a different interpretation. But what we then have is the Geonim. After the Amoraim, we have the Geonim, which is a period of time from about 600 to about 900. Yes, Hannah.
I was just going to ask or say, isn't halacha Moshe things like, why are the tefillin black? And it's not written anywhere in the Torah.
Yeah, it's part of the oral law.
It's not written in the Torah.
The Gemara, the Mishnah tells you how it should be.
It's the oral law, and that's halacha Moshe.
Correct. But it's usually use that expression when it's not something which you can explain. You can't explain why tefillin are black. You can't explain why they're square. You can't explain that. It's just halacha Moshe Messina. That's how it was, and that's been passed down from generation. So you've got the Geonim now. The Geonim are from 600 to 900, and that is where we start to see a lot of the prayers that we have. A lot of the prayers that we have, the earliest prayers were from the Geonic period, and Ritzei is one of them. Ritzei is mentioned also in the Gemara, in Barachos 48b, but the structure of Ritzei came from the Geonic period, from 600 to 900. Then we have the period of the Rishonim. Okay, who was the most famous of all the Rishonim? Rashi. And if you were a Sephardi and I asked you that question, you'd say Rambam. Okay, so there you go. You got machlokas straight away between the Ashkenazim and the Sephardim. Most famous Ashkenazi Rishon, Rashi. Most famous Sephardi Rishon, Rambam. So then you've got the Rishonim, and then you've got the and that goes on to probably the Middle Ages, through about 1500. And then you've got the Acharonim, the later people like the Maharal and all those lot, okay? Until you come to the contemporary poskim of the 20th century, people like the Chazon Ish, people like Chofetz Chaim, Reb Moshe Feinstein, and so it is a continuum. But the later people are always referring back, right? And we say an Acharon cannot argue with a Rishon. A Rishon can't argue with an Amorah. An Amorah can't argue with a Tana, right? The older you are, the further back in the chain, the closer you are to the Masorah. What's the Masorah?
Source.
The source, the tradition. The closer you are to that, the stronger your authority in halachic.
Is it that or entrenched?
No, it's both. It's entrenched there, and the problem was that was the problem with writing it down. It became entrenched, and that's why we weren't really meant to write it down. Rabbi Yehuda Hanassi had no choice, because otherwise we would have forgot it all. That was his view, and that's where he wrote. So to go back to our Ritzei was written in the Geonic period, and we don't know exactly who. It originates in the early Geonic period, and it's modelled on, what would it be modelled on? Something that was written earlier than the Geonic period. Something that we spent many, many weeks going through. The Amida. Which particular bit of the Amida? Ritzei, surprisingly, right? Ritzei, in benching, is based on Ritzei in Shemona Esra. Let's have a quick look at Ritzei in Shemona Esra and see the similarities. Ritzei Hashem Elokeinu b'yamcha Yisrael v'litflatam she'ei v'hashev et ha'avoda lidvir beitecha. Return the service lidvir beitecha. That's a reference. Dvir is a reference to the Beit HaMikdash. Return your service to the Beit HaMikdash. What do we say in the Ritzei of benching? V'areinu Hashem Elokeinu b'nechemot Tzion yirecha u'b'vinyan Yerushalayim ir kodshecha. And as Johnny has pointed out, Binyan Yerushalayim Ir Kodshecha is the Beit HaMikdash, so you can see straight away. V'ishei Yisrael utfilatam mehira be'ahava tikabel beratzon. We say in the Ritzei of the Amida, we ask for our prayers, which are what, by the way? What are our prayers? A substitute for Korbanot, which took place in the Beit HaMikdash. So we're asking for our tefillot, brackets, korbanot, to be ratzon, accepted, same as we've got in Ritzei, right? We've got it in Ritzei. Ritzei v'achlitzenu, ritzonecha, uvirtzoncha. You can see all the ritzon there. There's a comparison. And ba'ahava, the same as we said earlier on in Ritzei. So you can see very quickly. Utehila ratzon, again ratzon. Tamid avodat Yisrael amecha, and then we finish that bracha of Ritzei as follows, don't we? V'techazena einenu, let our eyes see, b'shuvacha l'tzion b'rachamim, in the return to Zion with mercy. Baruch atah Hashem, hamachazir shchinato l'tzion, he who returns his presence to Tzion. You can see the parallel. It's clearly, the Ritzei of benching is clearly a very strong parallel to the Ritzei of the Amida. Yes, Frank?
Yeah, two good ones. The use of the word ba'ahava is a recurring word that is coming up time and time again on Shabbat.
Yes.
It's very much
Yes.
a Shabbat word.
And
anyway,
what,
tefillah.
by the way, thank you for mentioning that. When you have a Yom Tov,
It's on a Shabbat.
and it's a no Shabbat, what do you add in brackets?
Ba'ahava.
Be'ahava. Yeah, because ahava is connected with Shabbat.
The question I was going to ask, we can see that we're saying this paragraph to recognize Shabbat. But we're also inserting it in benching, and we could have probably said it at any other stage during Shabbat, after one's lit the candles or before. There's no mention of the previous paragraphs, so we're all talking about food and being satisfied. There's nothing here that links this with Birchat Hamazon.
Okay, your question's fair, but you could ask me a much better question than that.
Yeah, I could. I just want you to start.
Okay, the much better question is, what's this whole third bracha is not anything to do with food at all. Never mind, let's say that we stick it in there. Maybe that's why we put it in, because it's also got nothing to do with food. That's a fair question, isn't it? What is this third bracha got to do? What's in there anyway for? Right? We said the first bracha is Hazan, who feeds everyone, written by Moshe because of the man. Man. Second bracha is about Haaretz, written by Yeshua, when we went into the land. Third bracha is about Binyan Yerushalayim, nothing to do with food at all.
It's a very sort of tangential.
Go on. I know what you're going to say. Go on.
Without the Beit HaMikdash, there's no korbanot, so the Kohanim.
You wouldn't eat. Yeah, I thought of the same thing, but it's a bit schwach.
It is a bit. Yeah.
Let me just for the recording. I don't know if they heard you. Jeff said, but without the Beit HaMikdash, we'd have no korbanot, and the Kohanim wouldn't have anything to eat. So it is about food. I thought the same thing, but it's not great, is it? It's not great. Yes, Hannah.
The Ramchal says that all the beneficiary things that come from God come via the temple in Jerusalem. And when the temple was destroyed, there was a decrease in the nutritional value of food.
Okay, that's an interesting idea. Certainly a decrease in the spiritual value of food, because the kedusha, the trumot, the maasrot, the korbanot, all of those things that we have to eat, or the kohanim have to eat in a state of kedusha, of holiness, didn't exist. I'm not so sure that I can, as a scientist, I'm not so sure I can accept that the nutritional value reduced. Certainly the spiritual value was reduced.
It's the concept of Tzinorot HaShefa. And Tzinorot HaShefa,
Kabbalah again, isn't it?
it's kind of who I am.
We love it that way.
Tzinorot HaShefa are all supposed to come through the temple and Jerusalem. And although, it's not openly said, but maybe that's part of what we're asking for, to restore the temple and restore the beneficiary of what was.
We're certainly asking for the restoration of Kedusha, that's for sure, because we say it. Binyan Yerushalayim, Ir Kochecha, your holy city. Okay, so what else can we say in the last 5 minutes about Ritzay? Okay, so
I've got an answer then.
The answer, why is it there? But for the reason that we said, we actually, the third bracha was instituted. We said the third bracha was instituted by whom? Do you remember? It was instituted by the by Rabbi Yochanan ben Zakkai and the men of Yavne. After the destruction of the temple, they added this in as a plea for mercy on Yerushalayim and the temple, to rebuild the temple. So that was
it's our spiritual nourishment as opposed to our bodily nourishment.
Exactly. So it's a request for mercy on Yerushalayim and a rebuilding of the temple. We'll come to the fourth bracha eventually, probably maybe not next week, because we've got to do Ya'aleh V'Yovo first, but maybe we'll catch it next week. So let's just have a look at what else we got about Ritzay. We've done that. Okay, a few halachic notes. This is interesting. What if you forget Ritzay?
I suppose got compensatory things. If you
forget compensatory things. Okay, so you forget Ritzay and you have finished benching. You forgot the compensatory things as altogether, right? You finished. Hashem Hashem Yivarech Shalom. Oh my goodness me, I forgot Ritzay. What do you do?
Just say it.
No. Leslie says, just say it. What do you say, Lionel? Do the whole thing again. Anybody disagree with Lionel?
Forget it.
Jeff says, forget it. Don't bother.
I'd scroll have got a bracha that you say.
Okay, I'm not going there.
You're not going there.
Okay, so,
Twice the next day.
okay, so you're all, Lionel is right and Jeff is right. How can that possibly be? Lionel said you have to say it all over again.
It's
And
my
Jeff
photo.
says,
It's my photo.
forget it. How can that both be right?
My photo.
No. In halacha, you're both right. How can that be?
Does one have to have more to eat?
Go on, yes, it depends when. Very good, Lionel. Go on.
29 towards morning. Have to repeat.
And
Thursday.
yes, excellent. Lionel's got it in one. Very good. Friday night and Shabbos morning, if you forget Ritzay, you have to go back and say the whole thing again. Right? Don't forget it again. Means you have to do it a third time. And at Sudash Lishit, Jeff's right. You do not repeat it. Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Possible because you're finished, it's almost out of Shabbat, so.
No, you can't. I'm not buying that.
Because you've already said it twice.
What's the difference between Sudash Lishit and the other two meals?
Yeah.
You don't have a kiddush.
Yeah, and you don't necessarily have to have like a.
What is special about Shabbat? What used to be special about Shabbat?
Understand.
That we used. What was that? Right.
Grandstand. Sorry.
Okay, moving on. Well, earlier than grandstand, I don't mean the new, right? Earlier in history than grandstand, back in the day of the Bet HaMikdash, even Frank Boff's not that old. What was special about Shabbat? What did we used to do on Shabbat? Yes, well, we used to have an extra something. Musaf.
Offering.
What does Musaf mean?
Extra.
Extra. We used to have an extra korban, a korban musaf. Okay, so the korban musaf could only be brought up until a certain time on Shabbat, right? Sudash Lishit. Once you get to Sudash Lishit, and it's already, so you weren't far wrong with your answer actually. That it's almost out Shabbat is actually true, that answer, but not because of what you said, because that's not a time for musaf. And this goes with Musaf. Ya'aleh v'yavo, which we'll talk about next week, please God. No, not next week, because I think I'll probably be away. But whenever the next time. Ya'aleh v'yavo is also on days when we have a Musaf. When do we say Ya'aleh v'yavo? Rosh Chodesh. Chagim. When do we not say Ya'aleh v'yavo? Chanukah. Why not? No Musaf. Purim. No Musaf. Okay, so Musaf is connected to these things. You don't do a Musaf offering, can't do a Musaf offering at that time, and so you're both right. What would you say? You should say it just there and then. Well, you're also right, because if you remember it before you get to Bonei Barachamav Yerushalayim, before you get to the Hashem, so you go and you say Rachem, and you say, and then you remember, then you can say it straight away, and then just go Baruch Atah Hashem Bonei Barachamav Yishmael. So you're all right. Okay, there's always more or less. Somebody just said forget about it and don't bother, but that was absolutely right in this situation. So that's a halachic thing. Now we'll come to Ya'aleh v'yavo next week, but there's also I'm going to ask you a similar question about that on Ya'aleh v'yavo. Now. Hannah mentioned, we'll just do this very, very briefly, there are compensatory things you can do. So you've said Borei Barachamav Yerushalayim Amen, but you haven't yet finished the whole business, right? You've not got to Hashem Ozlem Yitin, Hashem Yivarech Ezamo V'Shalom. You're in the Harachamons. You can say a compensatory bracha. And that is, if you say Harachaman, Hu Yanchilenu Yom Shekulo Shabbat U'Menucha L'Chai Olamim. Some say that actually you've said that, and that, as it were, does it for you, makes up for it. But there is an extra compensatory thing. Have you got it? Does it say that in the article?
I was there, yeah. Yeah, if you
Do you
forget.
want to read it out?
And blessed are you, our God, King of the universe, who gave Shabbats for contentment to his people Israel with love, for a sign and a covenant. Blessed are you, who sanctifies the Shabbat.
And where does it say you should put that in?
Just as if you forgot it.
Can I just have a look?
Yeah,
Please.
sure.
Thank you. Compensatory, one forgot to recite either Ritzay on the Sabbath or Yom Kippur on a festival, should insert the appropriate blessing before the fourth blessing. It tells you where to put it, before the fourth blessing of Birkat Hamazon. So, okay, fine. So let's just go fully through it. You remember before Baruch Atah Hashem, go and say Ritzay and carry on. You say Baruch Atah Hashem Bonei Barachamav Yerushalayim Amen, and then you remember you say the compensatory blessing right before the next blessing, before the fourth one, which is Hatov V'Ameitiv. You say Hatov V'Ameitiv and you're in the Harachamons. Some say that the Harachamon U'Yan Chilenu is good enough, but the most people paskin, like we said before, if it's Friday night, Shabbos morning, you have to go back to the beginning, and if it's you don't. So we're out of time. I thought we'd get through the Yalav as well. Shows you what I know. I should have known better. Yeah. Any questions on Zoom, Johnny? Any questions?
No.
Questions in the room?
Sorry, one question.
Sorry, we have a minion, so we can
Yes.
say a Kaddish.
Yes.
Okay, we can say a Kaddish. Okay, so I'll stop the recording before we do the Kaddish. Yes, we've got a question.
Isn't there a school of thought that benching can formally end after Aliyah Pasreinu?
Okay, yes. So if you ask the question in a different way, is Harachamon part of benching? No.
So therefore, what if you've forgotten Yalef or Yavor, let's say,
And you get to
you're
the end-
moving it from the compulsory part of benching to the optional
Okay.
part. You're putting it in a completely separate
So
section.
you mean the fourth bracha,
Yeah.
as opposed to after the fourth bracha?
Yeah.
So the fourth bracha is Durabanan. Everybody agrees that the first three brachot are Dioraita, and the fourth bracha is Durabanan. We'll talk about it when we get to the fourth bracha. But you're not really, because you haven't started that fourth bracha yet. You're saying the Ritzay, you're saying the compensatory bracha before you start the fourth bracha. Once you started the fourth bracha, you've had it. Got to go back.
That's what, because what you were saying, you put it in at the end with the.
With the Harachamon.
Yeah.
Yeah, but we don't paskin like that. Okay, we'll stop the recording.